All right. Good morning, guys. Believe it or not, we are only have 2 full weeks left. I think 14 total days, at least for teachers. But um, it's fast approaching the end, so we'll be closing up on our lessons in the next couple of weeks or so. We're going to continue on though with what we started on Thursday last week, where we talked about how political parties play a big role, and not even just political parties, but the candidates who are represented by some of those political parties play a huge role in influencing your vote. Okay, the voters, obviously not you guys yet, but eventually you guys will be able to vote. So that was part A. We talked about how candidates influence voters. Now we're going to focus today on two things. We're going to focus on the media and how the media plays that part of influencing, as well as interest groups. Okay, so this is the first of two videos that you're going to do today. The first one is going to focus on the media. Now, what we have here, this actually comes directly from the textbook, and it's a page that is titled Propaganda Techniques. We'll be looking closer at these ideas at some point. So we will be focusing mainly on propaganda on Thursday this week. But first, we need to learn more about the media in general, as well as interest groups in its many forms. Okay, so what we have here is an iCivics reading that's been broken down into sections. Okay, we're going to start with the section on media. So each page that you see is a paragraph or two smaller paragraphs from that reading. And what we'll do is we'll read it together, we'll talk about it, and as with all ed puzzles, you guys will have some questions to answer that you can get the answers from just reading the paragraphs or listening to me, or a combination of both. Okay. All right, so let's begin. So let's start with what is the media, okay? Because I know it's a term you guys are all familiar with, but what exactly is that? So let's read it together, okay? The word media means different things depending on how it is used. Media is the plural form of the word medium. A medium is a method of communicating information, entertainment, and other messages. Television is one popular medium. Radio, the internet, and cell phones are all examples of commonly used media. The term mass media refers to methods of communicating with large numbers of people. A lot of media exists purely for entertainment, such as movies and television sitcoms. But when you hear the phrase the media, usually it is referring to the sources of our news and information about current events. Paying attention to the media is how we stay informed about what's going on in the world around us and what our government is doing. All right, so take a look at that and answer some questions. And we'll move on to the next topic. The topic is the media as a gatekeeper. Okay, we used that term before. Well, we used the term watchdog before, and that's going to come up later. But gatekeeper is a similar phrase in terms of what the media does in our lives. A gatekeeper stands guard at a gate and decides who gets to pass through and who doesn't. In its role as gatekeeper, the media decides which stories and issues are important enough to receive public attention and which aren't. As a citizen, it is important for you to realize that there are many serious events and issues that you will never hear about on the evening news. Each news outlet has its own criteria for deciding which stories get through the gate and into the public eye. So the example, and I'm going to go off base here, the example we talked about news networks like Fox News and CNN. So those are two good examples of news stations that have a clear agenda and a clear bias. So Fox News tends to always favors the right end of the spectrum, political spectrum, conservative, Republican values, whereas CNN is the opposite. It always favors the left, liberal, democratic policies and issues and morals and values. So that's an example of, if you watch Fox News, you might see the same story on both stations, but they're going to be covering it in a very different way. They're going to be focusing on different things, but at the same time talking about the exact same story. To understand why, you need to understand two things. The media is a business and the media is almost always biased. And that is 100,000% true. Yes, the media is a business. The point of a business is to make money, and that's what they're out to do. And the media is always biased. So no matter what you talk about, you talk about Fox News, talk about NPR, BBC. I know my hair is doing crazy things. Sorry. BBC, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, every news station, every form of news media has a bias of some kind. And that's really important to understand. So even though some places will say, oh, this is totally unbiased news, we're just going to give you the facts, they're never telling the truth in terms of not having a bias. They may report the news honestly, they're going to give you the facts, but at the same time, their bias is always going to show out in some way. Okay, so take a look at that paragraph and read, answer any other questions. All right, gatekeeper. B is for business. So we kind of left off in the last paragraph talking about how media is a business. Most people get their news from television, radio, or a newspaper, either print or online. With the exception of PBS, the public broadcasting system, most are commercial or for-profit sources. They make money by selling time or space to advertisers. But advertisers won't pay for ads nobody will see. So for-profit media must make the news as exciting as possible to attract lots of viewers. All right, next paragraph. But let's face it, news programs are not always as exciting as, say, action films. In order to survive in today's culture, television news must keep things short, fast-paced, and exciting. On-the-hour radio news is even shorter. Stories most likely get through the gate. Again, we talked about gatekeeper, so that's like that metaphorical gate. Get through the gate are those that are the most gripping. Ever wonder why the news is full of car crashes and house fires? Again, there's a reason why people tune into that stuff. They're not going to tune in to hear about, this 12-year-old kid started a charity and raised this much money. People aren't really going to pay attention to that, but they are going to pay attention to things like car crashes, house fires, or as you guys know, it's going on right now, all of the Floyd protests that are going around all major cities around the country. That's what grabs attention. Okay. Stories most likely get through the gate are those that are the most gripping or that affect the most number of people. If a story can't be told in a quick 15-second soundbite, it's likely to be left outside the gate. Again, if every story was given to you like in an hour soliloquied and all these different points of views and stories, people would lose interest and would not pay attention. You put things into a 15-second soundbite like on the radio or a commercial on TV that's like no more than 30 seconds long, probably a lot less than that. That's what gets people's attention. That's what makes them more memorable, and that's what helps influence the viewers. All right, gatekeeper. B is for biased. All right, so we talked about the term bias before, so this is a little review. Biased means favoring one view over another. As a human being, it is impossible to be completely unbiased, even if you try, just like we talked about before. The media is made up of human beings. Therefore, even when media outlets try to be unbiased, they are not always successful. Bias may cause the media to open the gate to some stories instead of others, or to report stories in a way that is weighted toward one side. There are many causes of bias. The most common among media sources is being more politically liberal, leaning towards the Democrats, or conservative, leaning toward the Republicans. Again, we talked about the two news networks. CNN favors the left, Fox News favors the right. Okay, the media as agenda setter. Because of its role as gatekeeper, the media is largely responsible for deciding what issues society discusses in the public sphere. That means the media also determines which issues are on the public agenda, which is the to-do list of issues the public agrees are a priority. An issue won't get on the public agenda unless it is being discussed in the public sphere, and it won't be discussed in the public sphere if nobody has heard about it. All right. So again, similar to bias, every news network, every source of media has an agenda, and they like to stick to that agenda because they are attracting certain people, certain types of people who they're trying to influence. All right, we got a few more. All right, continuation of that. The media's role as agenda setter is controversial. Some people don't think for-profit corporations should set our public agenda. They worry that many important issues will never get public attention. Some issues just aren't exciting enough to compete with entertainment. Others are too complex to fit into a short soundbite. Although the public decides which issues to care about, the media only tells the public about a few of the issues that exist. Therefore, people worry that the public does not really have much of a choice about what issues are important. People also worry that a biased media influences the public agenda toward one way of thinking over the other. And that is inevitable. It's going to happen no matter what people try to say or do. There's always going to be an agenda for every news network. And again, it attributes to the bias thing that we talked about. Each of these networks have a bias, and those biases obviously attract certain people. Okay, media as a watchdog. This is that term I meant to talk about earlier. So a watchdog. All right, we talked about how political parties are watchdogs. The media is also a watchdog, okay? Just like this dog right here. All right, so a real watchdog stands as a guard and barks loudly to alert the owner if something is wrong. In its role as watchdog, the media keeps watch on the government and others in power. It speaks out to alert the public if something happens that shouldn't. Local news stations often have a segment in which they investigate problems for people. Entire hour-long news shows are devoted to exposés, which are stories designed to expose wrongdoing. Government officials who engage in bad behavior know they will be on every news show and newspaper in the country if they are caught. It doesn't stop them from, committing wrongdoings of any kind, but it does help. It keeps, people more honest most of the time. Although a watchdog will bark when there's something wrong, most of the time the watchdog just watches. Thanks to the media, we live in a world where we can turn on the television and watch our government in action at any given moment. Stations such as C-SPAN broadcast activity directly from the floor of Congress for everyone to see. Simply reporting information is playing watchdog too. Without the media, we would not know what is happening behind closed doors. And sometimes behind open doors. All right. Okay, last one. The media's audience, you. A watchdog doesn't do any good if nobody is paying attention. The public sphere and the public agenda both depend on the same thing, the public, which is made up of people like you. If the media reported an event and nobody watched or responded, it would not have the influence. It would have no influence at all. Oof. In the same way, the public influences the media because the media can't function without people's attention. How people respond to the media's reporting can affect which stories get through the gate. All right, so the next video you guys will look at will focus on interest groups, and I'll save that part for there. So thank you guys for tuning in, and hopefully you did this one first, and then you do the interest group second. In the end, it's not a huge deal, but hopefully that's the order you went. So talk to you guys in a minute.